Today we feature a mid-year review. Did I really just say that? We're nearly 6 months into this year. Anyway, a mid-year review and discussion around cloud solutions and trends, the transformative power of cloud computing, and the powerful support available to Telarus advisors from our cloud practice team. Koby Phillips is Telarus VP of Cloud, and he's joined today by Telarus Field Solutions Engineer Chad Muckenfuss and by Telarus Sales Engineer Mike Kowalski. Koby, Chad, and all, welcome back to our Tuesday call. During the introduction, I don't know who came and who left. Chad, how are we doing?
We're doing well, and Kobe's here to join us too.
He
So
is.
thankfully,
Welcome,
we can
Koby.
roll forward here with everything.
All right.
Just like to keep it interesting. I apologize for making anybody nervous. I was
You
trying
stiffed us on rehearsal. I don't know
trying to
where you are.
balance
The
the
dance
call.
number went completely out the window. No, it's good to
Yeah.
have you here, Koby. Welcome.
No, I just like to make Chad sweat and just say, hey, like he'll
He's good
figure
at
it out.
that.
And anyone that's worked with Chad will know he will come in and perform more than adequately and would probably do a better job than I'm going to do. But we're going to give it a shot anyway. So, Chad, I appreciate you not nervously texting and blowing me up while I was trying to get over here. So, um, I'm excited to be here to talk just a little bit about the mid-year review, everything we're seeing, and really what the conversation, guys, that we're going to focus on will be what is actually selling right now, what's creating funnel, and what conversations are driving all of those things. And I think it's not going to be a fancy PowerPoint. We're not going to draw anything out. We're just going to have key conversations. So my advice to you is take ample notes. We always have the follow-up and the recap emails in case you do miss anything. But Chad, and then as Mike is able to join us coming on here shortly, we're going to highlight where you guys are seeing wins, what we're seeing in the marketplace, and how we're attacking those. So, Chad, a lot of stuff's been happening this year already. We're coming off the key trends last year, where all we talked about most of the year was Broadcom and VMware and everything like that. We're finally seeing some of those deals actually hit. We'll give some updates on that. We're going to talk about AI. Shocker. I know that was probably on everybody's bingo card that we're going to discuss. But more importantly, we're going to talk about the bridge between what we're seeing in cloud, bridging into cyber, which is an easy step, but also back into network and into CX and the UC conversations now with that agentic, that playbook that we're putting together. And then last but not least, really that good old fashioned hybrid approach, putting the right workloads in the right places. So Chad, what are you seeing out of those three elements make the most impact right now? And where are you seeing a lot of wins coming?
So a couple of places. First of all, I think the hybrid cloud conversation is one that continues to be at the top of the list with companies that, again, you and I have said it time and time again on these types of presentations that the big push to public cloud was major because of COVID. Cost overruns still continue to be a situation. So what's happening is workloads are being pulled back to private cloud and building a hybrid model so that everyday workloads and applications that are daily use are put in a private cloud, and then storage, disaster backup, all that type of thing is done in the public clouds where it can be cost contained and utilized that way. What I'm seeing a little bit more is the concern in and around data governance, to touch on that aspect of things too. So, figuring out how in the public cloud aspect can data governance be implemented properly so that as companies begin to embrace and leverage AI, they can also have the knowledge that the data is safe and not out there for public consumption and be able to utilize that in the manner that they need to, both from an internal use side for employees, et cetera, for the company, and then external facing too, that we'll touch on here in a little bit when we dig a little deeper into the AI model stuff. That's the two big areas that have been consistent specifically in the first half of this year. I would say to your point also, the VMware discussion has not gone away. We have some really good opportunities. I'm working on two actively right now that are leaving VMware behind. They made the decision to one to Nutanix, one to Hyper-V, and we have the suppliers in-house to be able to bring them over, help with the migration. It's not a huge uplift for the IT teams on the customer side, and those have been really, really good projects, albeit a longer buying cycle, because that VMware was a big slap in the face last year to companies, and the customers there, and then in turn, now they've made the decision. They've kind of settled down, taken the emotion out of the decision is the best way to phrase that, and now moving over to what needs to be done in the best interest of their organizations. So lots of stuff happening, continues to happen. I'm excited to talk about too as we dig in a little bit deeper here the connectivity side of things and how some of the new features that we have through our suppliers are really cool.
Let's break the golden rule. What supplier did the Nutanix?
The supplier that did the Nutanix, well, we're not supposed to talk about
Hey,
that.
review. Tell
So
who's
it ended up with Expedient was the one
Yeah,
that's doing the
we're going to
Nutanix.
end up highlighting a few suppliers here today and make sure that we're spreading the love around a bit. But I want to make sure you guys know who we're going to for that. Nutanix as a service isn't exclusive to Expedient anymore, right? That a lot of people dumped that and they said, "Hey, we're just going to focus on our VMware partnership." I think Broadcom put a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah.
We saw Expedient. We see some others that are building out some Nutanix offerings that'll be coming out to give some other options there. But I know Expedient's done a really great job on those type of opportunities. Anything else you're seeing on that VMware conversation that's piquing interest? Because it's not just migrating away, right, Chad? We see a lot of like companies that are going, "Hey, we're going to stick with VM, but we don't want to manage this at all anymore." And we have
Correct.
a ton of different great suppliers that are helping with migrations onto their platforms. What does that look
Yeah.
like?
So that looks again, that's a great point. A lot of it comes down to the customer saying it's not worth my time or effort to try and maintain this at a level that our premier suppliers can handle for them. So what happens a lot of times is now those IT teams that have continued to be slimmed down are pushing that over. So we're doing migrations onto a private cloud solution for them and taking all of that management off of their plate so that they can focus on streamlining what they need to do and what their focuses need to be internally instead of managing all that VMware. Some great successes with 1111, since we're calling out suppliers now with
This is
that.
for all.
Yeah, and the other cool thing too is, sticking with the 1111 side of things, their relationship with AWS has really kind of kicked the door open for S3 storage and all of that. And we'll get into that more as the call goes along here. But 1111 has done some great things. They're a really good supplier for that transition. Again, they throw a bunch of engineering resources at that transition, so the customer isn't responsible for the big uplift of migrating all of that from their existing, usually on-prem VMware to a private cloud VMware. So it's a really good streamlined process.
Yeah, let's dive into the data storage conversation real quick. With 1111 in particular, that has been a big selling point. I'll give a little bit of the background and story on it and give an analogy for everybody on the call that you can kind of wrap your heads around it a little bit better. So 1111 partners with AWS on S3 storage. So Chad, give a quick snapshot of what that product is from AWS, the S3 buckets, and what that's meant to the cloud-based object storage community for years.
Yeah, so the cloud-based S3 storage is great for cold and warm storage. It's their premier storage side of things. It is literally one-third the cost of going to AWS direct, buying through 1111 and that partnership. And what it allows for is really a huge cost decrease for the customer in long-term storage. So being able to take information, drop it or migrate it, not drop it, but migrate it over to AWS in that S3 storage bucket, be able to keep it there, touch into it when they need to. The ingress and egress is a part of the fees included in the whole offering through 1111. So again, it's extremely cost effective. I have been moving literally petabytes of information over to that model over the past 6 months here. We've had some major wins in that aspect of things for this whole AWS storage aspect. It's been great. It's been really good. It's a real easy door opener for conversations. Partners with your customers to be able to ask where the customer is currently storing their data, and it's a really easy door opener for us to get in, get an easy win. There's not a competition that touches that right now in that space, and it's direct competition with Wasabi. So if you're working any deals that are Wasabi based, I can almost guarantee that we can win with this product set too.
Yeah, so the story behind this, guys, so everybody has a little bit of the background, is AWS partnered with 1111 and said, we want you to go compete this product with Wasabi and another company called Backblaze. So that's always been kind of the low cost option. And in doing so, they gave them the ability to sell for about $7 a terabyte, the same product that AWS sells directly for $23 a terabyte. The best analogy that I can probably kind of talk through here is the kind of more in the aggregator space for network. So imagine we'll say AWS is AT&T in this space and ACC is 1111. That's kind of like they don't own 1111, but the partnership's very tight. They go to them and say, hey, we want to make things easier and streamline it and be more cost effective, but we don't want to dump our prices. So go compete in that space. 1111's networking background really gave them an advantage here because that's what helps with the egress type charges where they network it all out. So for $7 a terabyte, you get a flat storage fee with no egress charges. When you bring that up to a client and you simply go, what are you doing for your object storage? I have a great product here. It is an amazing door opener. And what we've noticed is once we get in with one of these door openers, 1111, TierPoint, Expedient, Thrive, RapidScale, et cetera, all of these guys have the propensity to grow those accounts once they get in there. You have levels of protection in the agreements. They're going to make sure that you ride along with them. And what we're seeing is about a 30 to 40% growth rate still. Once a deal is sold, that inside of those opportunities. So you sell $1 today, 12 months from now, we're seeing about $1.30 to $1.40 build with these type of suppliers. I just named a few. There's many that fall into that bucket. And then the other piece of it is once they get in there, we see that handyman effect, right, Chad? I know we're talking about data storage, but then that falls really quickly into a backup and a disaster recovery, and then some additional infrastructure. And it becomes like when I call it a handyman, you get somebody over to your house to fix something, and you realize you got a lot of other stuff on your list that they can help with. All of a sudden, they don't leave your house for a couple of weeks. They're coming back every day doing more and more services for you. So that's something that we're seeing continue to be a great entry point into these conversations amongst a couple others that we'll continue to highlight. So we hit on, that data storage conversation, and I'm going to go and answer the question in the chat from Steve. Absolutely. What we're seeing is Microsoft's product that aligns to 1111. It's called Azure Blob Storage. We're seeing wins across the board. This has happened now multiple times where clients in Azure Blob Storage will then migrate their data over to 1111. It usually saves, I think it's about on average of 40 to 60%, depending on the rates that they're getting from Microsoft. And it's then you got the migration plan and all of that you put into place. It's a pretty easy conversation. If you guys had the background like me, or I grew up at a company called Integra, and my first job is, the 50 cards, 50 calls a day, knock on every door, and you're just asking for phone bills so you can take it back and do an analysis on how much you can save them. If anybody had lived that life, right, throw it in chat. You can just say me too. Or if there was any kind of like a nightmare type of emoji, we could put that in there. But it really did happen. And once you got a bill from like a LEC, Chad, remember this, like you get a bill from AT&T or Verizon or any of those type of plays, you're like, oh, this is going to be an instant sell, right? I'm going to save these guys 30 or 40%. That's what we see with this data storage product. It's going to grow into a couple of the other things that you'd mentioned around cost optimization. You mentioned that 2 or 3 times, like we're trying to save money. Everybody's very much aware of what's going on in the economy. Data storage is one of those things that people just kind of set and forget. They pay the bill. This is creating a conversation where you're like, hey, I can save you 20 or 30 grand. I mean, a couple of petabytes, we saved a company 40 grand a month just by moving their data storage. That is now expanded where they are having 1111 do some other services. So again, FinOps seems to be a scary conversation for a lot of people, but if you really focus on it, it's cost optimization and resource optimization all driven in together. And that's what we're being able to provide a lot of the times with a lot of these solutions. Speaking of, Chad, you kind of teased a little bit earlier. The other major door opener that we've been seeing and that we're having a lot of success with, You kind of talked about the AI conversation. So
Mhm.
what are you seeing in that space? There's multiple pieces to this, but what are you seeing in particular that's starting to move the needle in AI?
So what's moving the needle in AI right now, and especially the conversation in and around it, is we try and AI is a topic of conversation with virtually every call that we have across the board with our partners, with their customers, all that. So what we're looking to do is instead of hey, the world of possibilities, we try and narrow it down to some specific areas where we can get in that company, score a win, get some buy-in on the AI and how it's helping the company, and then go from there. And again, the same mentality that we've had with a lot of other of the offerings that we have is a land and expand, like we just talked about with storage. Wins with AI are small wins, but they open really big opportunities once you have that small win and a buy-in from that customer. So, with that being said, some of the wins that I'm seeing more and more often here are actually companies that are leveraging the AI for internal facing information, specifically in and around HR. So, what we're seeing is chatbots and voice bots being implemented and being utilized in the HR departments to be able to handle onboarding and offboarding new employees. Instead of an FAQ on their website or pointing somebody somewhere to a file, they are actually having interactive chatbots set up. Again, the guardrails are built around the HR information internally. It's secure. It's typically utilizing some kind of private cloud in that instance, although we have them set up also in Azure instances with Microsoft leveraging Copilot too. All of that to be said is, hey, I need my W-4 form for a new employee coming on board. So it's forms, it's things that you have questions on. All of that information, because it's a question response type of model, it's a very easy implementation, it's a very easy win, and it eliminates a lot of time and effort on the HR staff to be able to onboard and offboard employees quickly and to allow the HR teams to be able to do more of what they were brought on for instead of the clerical type model of stuff. So it's a productivity enhancement that again I'm seeing time and time again is a huge win. So leveraging that as small wins and then growing that small win once you have buy-in from the customer of, oh, AI does really help. Here's what I can point to as look at the increased productivity, look at the savings of time and money. So I'm not paying HR staff to do any of that, and it's been really really good. And it just speaks to where AI is going. It's a productivity tool first and foremost, and from there, I think it's just how that's leveraged within each company's unique ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's a different conversation than I'm going to go save you money on data stores, but the
Yes.
outcome, right, can still fit in. The number one thing that's going on right now outside of the AI conversation is continually FinOps, right? Give me like, how do I leverage what I'm utilizing more? How do I get more out of my resources? And Chad, you just gave a really great example of how companies are doing that. And we'll invite Mike into the conversation as well if we want to get him going in here, Chandler, if you want to get Mike onto the bigger screen with us. The conversation, Mike, just to catch you up really quickly, and then we'll do a recap for the audience here. We really covered out where we're seeing a lot of the wins in the Broadcom space in the migration of VMware on either to infrastructure that's not owned by the company or by the customer or onto a different platform, whether that be Microsoft led or Nutanix in a lot of instances. We're now kind of on to the conversation around AI, spinning off the conversation around what we're seeing wins in data storage, centered around 1111. So rules of the game, Mike, just so you're aware, gloves are off. We're mentioning suppliers in which that we're seeing the successful
Okay.
with, so you don't have to guard against the suppliers' names. It will highlight them, and we'll make sure that we'll call out anything else that we're seeing in the major trends for the group here. Ultimately, Chad, on that AI conversation, finding a good use case like that, and what you just gave to the audience is a really great one, and where we're able to implement. Who are you seeing? And I think I know the answer, but we'll add a couple of other options in there too, most likely. Who are you seeing kind of lead that charge on that internal process change?
Yeah, Yellow AI has been the one that I have had the most success with, and they have done a tremendous job of going in. They are able to interface with all different types of software, overlay existing services and functionality, applications, all that type of thing. And again, the wins there have been really, really good, especially around what I described. So you have, a bunch of information that is an ask and answer type model, super easy to implement. It's a I don't want to say it's cookie cutter because there are some nuances that need to be set up and properly designed, but Yellow and their team really goes in, does a great job on the discovery on the front end, and then turns around and is able to present a really good, strong product on the back end with the option to really grow and expand that internally within the company and customer facing as well.
Yeah, and see, I want everyone to kind of witness what we're seeing here. We're on a cloud-based HIT series, and we're bringing up Yellow AI that's traditionally been in our CX bucket, right? But that's what this is starting to expand into all these conversations. So I'll take you guys on a quick journey. Think about what Chad just laid out, and Mike, jump in too if you have anything to add as we kind of start to tell this story. But it's around the data, right? If you start to do this follow the data model, it takes you everywhere you want to go in the conversations with your customer. I don't know, several years ago, guys, we had that, was it Forbes? It was an article that came out said data is the new oil, right? It's the most valuable thing in the world. And that has, with this boom of AI, it has really just even set it off even to a higher standard of truth where like everybody that is looking to do anything in technology now, first rule is your data in the right place? Is it secure? Is it cleaned? Is it usable? These are all the things that are now being asked more and more and more. And it's an analogy I've used before, but I'll use it again here in case you've heard it. I just don't want to sound too repetitive. Chad, Mike, you guys are going to hear it all the time. But the analogy that I always look at is you have your house and it's not, clean, it's not dirty, but it's not picked up, right? Now you're having a party and you got to go and you're all of a sudden you got an hour and a half before people start showing up and you have more motivation than ever to then go and start to clean up that space that you're going to be hosting in, make sure everything's tidy and looks its best. That's what every part of every organization is looking at right now when it comes to their data. All of a sudden, everyone's looking to go, hey, we want this technology. We want to be able to do this, this, and this. How's our data look? And they're like, oh no, we got to go clean up that house really, really quick. And so those are some of the projects that Chad's mentioning that starts off small and then grows because there's data cleansing, there's data readiness that needs to happen, et cetera. And then that leads into Mike as one of the most like underutilized, not spoken about a lot, but then when we get these deals, they grow like crazy. Database management and kind of database as a service. Who are you seeing hit in that space? Traditionally Entirety's done really well. We're seeing some others start to emerge. Are you seeing a lot of growth in that space and conversation around data management as well?
I am, and I can't speak to specific suppliers at this point because we probably have a half a dozen that are going through our supplier vetting process that really have that ultimate focus on the data because it is really kind of a specific thing that a lot of the suppliers in the portfolio have it kind of as a offside service, but the whole business isn't designed around actual data. So I think there's some really exciting things that are coming up through the channel that we'll be able to kind of talk, socialize a little bit in the future. Nothing is approved yet, but I've been hearing a lot more about data. How do we capitalize on our data, monetize our data, protect our data, especially when it comes to LLMs and people are pumping in classified, company classified data into ChatGPT, which now becomes part of the language out there for everyone else to capitalize on, right? How do we minimize that? How do we mitigate that? How do we control that? So as of today, bring those types of opportunities forward. If you're having these conversations with your customers and it's kind of tricky for you, you don't know the path, the talk track, the way to handle these, the best way you could do is, it sounds like you need some help here. Let's get on the phone with one of our engineers so that we can really dig into this and have a meaningful conversation.
Well, speaking of that, I'm going to tell a quick story that just happened yesterday. So this is a customer meeting that I took part in with one of our advisors. Uh, as we had it's about an hour plus long meeting. We had a list of things to go through, and as I walk away, kind of like last 5 minutes of the meeting, posed the question, "Hey, what are you guys doing for like your AI strategy and everything when it comes to Chat GPT?" Now, this organization's kind of a larger mid-market style company, and they said, "Well, we put an AI governance team together. We're letting them have Copilot." I said, "Well, what if you guys could have 14 major LLMs, up to 20, depending on which option you went with, because we have a couple of suppliers that can do this, and that allows for security, that puts everything in security in a secure and compliant environment for you for $10 to $20 a user." And all of a sudden, that became the number one thing they wanted to meet with first immediately. So the companies that can do that are a company named Liminal, and I might be butchering that name. I always kind of mess it up a little bit. And Expedient again. So both of those guys have come in and put together a secure environment and platform for multiple LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, and others to be able to go in and for companies to utilize right away. Chad, you mentioned how that can talk through the, bringing your HR data and things like that. One of the best examples I've seen in a demo, just to kind of give a little bit more clarity on that, on top of the onboarding, is imagine when an employee has to look up their insurance. Hey, what's my PPO look like? What's my healthcare plan? That generally would mean an email to HR. They then have to find the documents, email it over, which they probably have ready. But all of those things that they talk through now can be done in seconds and right there and delivered internally. And again, safely and secure, because the model that they put together in these platforms. So this has been a tremendous door opener. We're seeing a tremendous amount of funnel. We've had advisors host customer facing events where they had 20 to 30 different customers show up and immediately register 20 plus opportunities out of it. So this is a pressure field environment for organizations. They're getting a ton of AI pressure, and so this helps kind of like relieve that stress quite a bit. Chad, as far as the AI modeling goes and the data and everything, anything else that you can think of in any other major opportunities? I know I continue to talk.
I wanted to address, there was a couple of things a little early on in the chat there, where is AI hype, BS, or real? Where's the ROI? So I'm going to give a specific example that shows this of an opportunity. Again, Yellow AI and Boost AI were two of our suppliers that bid on this project. It's a manufacturing company that makes aftermarket high-end exhaust systems for, think Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Bentley, all very high-end stuff. They have 3 specific customer service representatives that are there to handle all inbound calls. It's a smaller shop, so this is not a big, manufacturing company. It is an SMB, and they're US based. And what they were struggling with is those 3 customer service reps are getting pinged. They're operating on a 24/7 or 24, not 24/7, but 24-hour schedule during the work week. So Monday through Friday, 24 hours a day, because they ship globally. What they needed to do was have the ability to be a resource for the installers of their product on a global scale. We brought in Boost and Yellow AI to present, and the customer ultimately went with Yellow AI for this. But what they wanted to do was leverage the ability to ask questions via, whether it was voice, and the voice can talk to them in 160 different languages, something like that, right, Mike? Something like crazy like that. But it's 150 plus languages that they can actually speak to the agent, the AI, or they can chat back and forth, same number of languages as well. And a repository of all the information of how to mount the proper products, where things go, question and answer. And now those 3 customer service people are being utilized where they needed to be utilized. Instead of installation support, they were being utilized now for actual customer service, shipping, all those types of things. So the ROI was there immediately. It was not a huge uplift for the company to be able to leverage that product set. It integrated in. They had a data set that was fairly clean. Yellow's team came in and helped clean it up a little bit more and went to market in a short period of time. It was less than 90 days. So again, just wanted to address that so that there is ROI there. And again, we're looking for small wins. This is not something where you're looking to implement AI to replace people. It's a tool to supplement their work, make them more productive. It's not a replacement for people a lot of times.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do something I'm very much not in the practice of doing. I'm gonna expand on Mike's answer here a little bit in chat. Somebody asked how many AI companies we had access to in our portfolio currently. When you look and you span across it, companies that are selling an AI-based product, right? Specifically, that's AI capable or that is targeted as an AI solution, you have north of 50. You start to get into the CX conversation and that bridge that's being built by some of these AI conversations in the cloud and cybersecurity, et cetera. And you get into even like the IoT stuff, what they're doing with the cameras and all of those AI type of environments. You start to expand a pretty large ecosystem and conversation here. Within particular, the cloud space, you got about 12 to 15, right, that are doing what I think Mike was answering. And I just wanted to give a little clarity there around the data cleansing and data readiness. And like, there was a third stage of AI that we're seeing some wins in. And this is where the cool stories come, right? So we have the stage 1 kind of approach, if you want to call it that, with liminal and expedient, that AI awareness will get you in a secure environment, let you start taking advantage of some of these features and functionalities from these large LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera. Great, cool. That gives me, if I'm sitting there as an organization, I can now, Mike and Chad go, whew, I have an AI answer all of a sudden, and I have it in place, and I can get my organization off my back a little bit. Stage 2, guys, if you think about it in these terms, stage 2, that's where you go back in and go, all right, I got my Band-Aid, right? I got this really great product from, one of the resources we previously mentioned, and it's doing great, and we can build on top of that. It gives me a little time to get my data cleaned up. I can now go through and get my data, my data aligned, either figuring out what all areas I want to include in these AI projects, start to put those into place, et cetera. And then stage 3 is once I have my data cleaned up and I have this other piece, I can go through and go, man, are there any AI centric like app dev type of projects that I need to put into place that can really drive some additional ROI? And this is where you start to see some eyes light up and things start to kind of change pace. I'm going to steal an example from RapidScale. RapidScale did a deal late last year, and it's been highlighted on the calls before, but it was such an interesting opportunity. I'll highlight it again. And Chad, I believe you have some working knowledge of this one too. It's the lobster story,
Yep.
where the client was wanting to, keep me honest here. They wanted to set the price of lobster and better be able to forecast it based off of trends and everything that they'd seen for years. But remind me again, and I know the answer, but we're doing this for dramatic effect. Where was that data held for that client?
That data was in 3-ring binders, sitting on shelves and stacked in boxes inside their warehouse.
So,
No.
not a data lake,
Nope.
not a data warehouse, just an actual warehouse.
Yep.
With paper. So we saw RapidScale come in, build out a roadmap, take the data, get it in alignment to be able to utilize it, and then build some custom app or some custom dev to the AI and put that in place on top of what the data sets that they had cleaned up, and created this environment for that organization that can now help set the price of lobster and help them forecast and all of the things that they were looking to do. I miss anything on that story?
No, well, I think, yeah, just some more specific details on it besides the paper aspect of things and building that out. I do like to highlight that all of that aspect, including the digitization of the paper and everything, came through Telarus. So it was not RapidScale that did that, but we had a BPO that's in our portfolio that focuses on digitization and database development. So they were able to do that and digitize all that paperwork, put it into a database that was clean. They had all the data readiness as a part of that project, and then RapidScale stepped in and built the LLM in and around that and added in the feeds that were necessary that Lobster company subscribed to for weather in the North Atlantic, fuel prices in and around Canada and the northeast of the United States, all those things that impact the cost per pound of that lobster that goes into it, so they can have an accurate price real time whenever those lobster boats pull up at their docks. It was pretty cool.
Well, we're getting the hook from Doug here to get ready for a really great supplier in Inzu and coming on. But I'm gonna give a little lead into Dustin, right? Dustin, give me 2 seconds. This will end up being good for all of us, I promise. Mike, the other major thing that's happening right now is we're seeing a decline in opportunities around these big 2, 3, 4 megawatt style deals, right?
Yep.
And we see this pressure with tariffs in a lot of the supply chain. And that's opening up some additional conversations around companies that do bare metal and some other infrastructure hosting like what Inzu does. We're seeing a pretty big uptick in that. Anything you want to kind of tee up real quick, and then we'll toss it over to Doug and Dustin here.
I'm not saying the door closed overnight, but those large opportunity for power have basically gone down 90%. And that's because these clients are now looking at pre-established infrastructure that they can commit fully dedicated to their workloads. So they now realize they don't necessarily need to take down 5 megawatts of power. Huge commitment, by the way, and lots of infrastructure to go with that. They're moving that off into fixed dedicated infrastructure that can host for their workload specifically. And speaking of Dustin, he has gone through and created some crazy looking dedicated servers for us. Very large, $1 million CapEx in some instances, but this far outweighs the cost of what it would take to do this on their own for these other, 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 megawatt deals. So I I wish they would come back because now all of these data centers have been building out to support this, and it's available, soon to be available. But when we have that ability to sell value with our services, you can do it this way if that's the way you'd like to do it. But let me introduce you to Enzo, who can do it a little bit differently, and maybe this is going to be a better value to you. So therefore opens the discussion.
Well, we'll hand it over to you guys with that. I will say one thing to put a quick bow on that for the advisors. The enterprise customers, the mid-market enterprise customers do have a sense of urgency like they never have before in the data center space. So continue to have that conversation because all of that capacity was taken. It triggered this effect of like, hey, we need to go do this now. There's that bubble hasn't hit yet, and there's still a lot of big opportunities there, but more in the traditional size data center opportunities. So keep having those conversations. And again, we'll hand it over to Doug and Dustin to take it away from here. Thank you, guys.